You know, I'm sure this video is going to piss off a lot of my communist friends, but I figure it needed to be said because a lot of people on my Facebook asked me to do this video, and they're friends of mine, so I will listen to the request. They wanted to know what I think of historical communists, and if I agree that they were communists or not really, or, that they were doing it wrong, whatever. Now, before I go any further, I want to say that I have deep respect for everyone that considers himself a communist or a socialist or any left-leaning ideology. And while I don't always agree with their methods or even their ends, I do appreciate that they're fighting for something to get us away from the plight of working class struggle, from class hierarchy, from the abuses of the bourgeoisie. So, as I say that, I'll first go into Vladimir Lenin, because I believe he was the best example of a communist. And even so, Vladimir Lenin implemented international socialism. He was responsible for the Soviet Union's creation. And even so, he had his problems. He underestimated human evil. He underestimated the ambivalence and ignorance of human ingenuity. And he didn't go far enough. He always stopped at, just owning land or owning, trinkets here and there. But it goes beyond that. You have to recondition the human mind to not be capitalist. And Lenin wasn't willing to do that. And that is why the Soviet Union collapsed. Because Lenin wasn't willing to go far enough. He was not willing to get down and dirty and, be underhanded, scheming, and brainwash the people. Now we'll go into his successor, Joseph Stalin. Stalin was not a communist. Stalin was a fascist. Now, before people start sending the hate comments, I don't say fascist as a bad thing. He may have been a fascist, but he was a fascist that was reasonable for his time. He was a national fascist. He was a hyper-nationalist. He did not believe in ethnic cleansing. He did not believe in, a theocracy. He believed in Mother Russia. He believed that Russia was the homeland and needed to be preserved and isolated from the rest of the world that was turning more and more bourgeoisie-oriented. And it's reactionary. He was reacting, as most often countries do, to global capitalism. And that is why he failed. Because Stalin was a neo-fascist. And this idea that we have to somehow ignore that quality about him just because it was reasonable and just because he did indeed do good things for Russia, it's blatant lies. It's bullcrap. There is no reason why we should call Stalin a communist when he wasn't. And, while I respect the man and I believe he was a good person, I'm not going to sit here and claim he was a communist when he wasn't. The same goes for Che Guevara. Che Guevara was not a communist. He was very racist and nationalistic oriented. He just never had time to implement it. But I'm sure if he was actually in charge, he would have been very xenophobic and he would have picked and choose who lived and who died as far as skin color and religious convictions go. In practice, though, he was a nihilist. He was an anarchist. He believed in revolution for the sake of revolution. And while that isn't bad in and of itself, it does leave opportunities for communists to emerge and, rebuild society. None of them stepped up to the plate because it is so rare to find a real communist. So, am I saying that Che was a bad guy? No, but he was not a communist. He was, he just wanted revolution. He was pissed off. He was just sick of everything, and he wanted to move forward, even if that means just the destruction of everything. It's no different than Islamo-fascists. Islamic fascists, have jihad, which roughly translates to exhaustion. Exhaustion from the plight. Exhaustion from the bullshit. And it's religious conviction that there is so much evil in the world that you just have to fight it regardless of the cost, regardless of the consequences. And that's what Che was exercising. That's what Che was conveying, was a jihad. And he just wasn't a religious jihad. He was a secular jihad. I guess that's all I can think of. There's Leon Trotsky, because a lot of, I expect Maoist Rebel to just, despise anything related to Trotsky. I personally really don't hate Trotsky all that much. I can see why Maoist Rebel would have disdain for him, because he is not a communist either. He's a liberal socialist. He's a pseudo-intellectual type like Noam Chomsky. He's the type where he would have caved even more so to human evil than Lenin. He would have caved on property itself. He would have probably allowed private ownership to, sprout up and just taxed here and regulated there and slowly but surely try to, shape the market and the economy to his will, hoping that that would make things better. Has that ever worked? Has that third way position ever really done anything about the super rich or about what the petty bourgeoisie do to the workers of the world? No. So Leon Trotsky would have been completely useless. But I don't say that as like he was an evil man. I say that as like that is the common left wing of today. He would have been no different than any other strongly liberal, Democrat or something of today's standards. And that's the unfortunate reality. That's why we're in the position we are, because we have no one that is willing to get down and dirty for the communist belief system. We have no one that is truly implementing communism, or at least iron-fisted socialism. And what we have here is a bunch of, teeny-weeny liberal socialists who just want to talk. They want to be civil, and they want to, be diplomatic. And that doesn't work with the brutal types willing to kill children in the third world to make a fucking iPhone. And then you have your nationalists, whether they be racist, whether they be hyper-nationalists, whether they be religious. And then you have your nihilists. A lot of the people in Occupy Wall Street are nihilists and anarchists that are just sick of everything and will settle for whatever they get, just as long as it's not this crap. And that's just not communism. And it makes it hard to argue that there ever could be real communism, because you know how these reactionary types are. Oh, communism is unachievable. Communism is good on paper, blah, blah. But I don't believe that. I do believe communism is possible, but it takes time. You're not going to undo hundreds of thousands of years of class struggle in a day. It's just not going to happen. It is a transitional thing. So that is why I don't judge the socialists, the nationalists, the fascists, the anarchists. I don't hold any ill will toward them, because, that is what we have to work with. That is our arsenal right now. And it would be wrong of me to exclude them just because, their belief systems are flawed. They're human. They're going to be flawed. But the point is to escape the clutches of the ultra-right wing. The point is to escape the chains that tie us down and keep us from achieving our dreams and having freedoms and having basic rights to, medicine and to education and to innovation and to happiness. We have to fight that however we can. So, I don't hold ill contempt toward them. And, even I myself am a flawed individual. I would never suggest that just because my beliefs were implemented, that suddenly we would be this communist utopia. Most likely, if you were to listen to me word for word and not deviate from it, what you would get is some kind of international Stalinism, where it would not be hyper-nationalism in the sense of the motherland, but it would be hyper-nationalism in the sense of a secular religion. It wouldn't be a religion in God, it wouldn't be a religion in the high priest or the pope, but it would be a religion in the sense of this ideal cannot be deviated from, and then from there, people would be killed and executed and brutalized because, they'd be suspicious of their fellow man as a capitalist sympathizer or something. And while I would not want to do that, physically right here, right now, I know that generations from now, if my beliefs were implemented, that's what it would turn into. It would turn into that episode of South Park where people were waging war in the name of science. Science, damn you, oh my science. you know, and it would be just like that, where they argue over semantics, and, you know, while they laugh at the idea of a religious belief, haha, you believe in a supernatural being, you know, the fact is they're still pulling the same bullshit. But does that mean that it's not any sort of progress? Does that mean that it isn't worth at least trying, or at least implementing, for the sake of at least a little bit getting away from that capitalist mentality? Of course not. You know, I still believe that I am doing the right thing. I still believe that my beliefs are right, and that, you know, I have a lot more to offer to humanity than some other people. But I'm not going to say that I'm perfect. I'm not going to say that, you know, just because you listen to me word for word, that the world is going to be free from all suffering and all war and all, you know, hatred and conflict. I just can't promise you that. But I can promise you it'd be better. I can promise you that it would move us towards something better, and that we would transition into a higher state. So that's all I have to say about my opinion on the different communist figures and etc. I don't know a whole lot about the more obscure ones like Fidel Castro and you know, Chairman Mao and what's the other one? Jim Kong-il. Well, I think you pretty much know I don't think Jim Kong-il is a communist. But, you know, my point is, I'm not all that well endowed in every single one of them. But I do have these ideas of where they lean and how I feel about them. And it's kind of ironic that, as someone that gets a lot of flack, you know, for not being a true Scotsman, I get banned from Revlef and Soviet Empire, I don't hold any ill will toward anybody that is left-leaning. You know, I truly believe that they have the best interests of mankind at heart, and that, you know, they're just wrong. And I'm sorry that they're wrong, but that's the way it is. And, you know, I would hope that we could overcome those differences and work toward a greater good, and that what we do agree on, or that at least our common enemy, will be extinguished, and then from there at least we move a step forward. You know, despite that inclusiveness, despite that truly indiscriminate feeling, you know, I get banned everywhere. But that is human nature. But human nature can be changed. I truly believe that. I truly believe that we are not stuck in our ways, and that if we can evolve to be erect and have opposable thumbs, we can evolve to be a loving, intelligent, creative, engineering creature that can create technology to save ourselves from the physical plights of, you know, planetary destruction and natural disasters, and we can evolve to be spiritually better, where, you know, we provide for each other and we authentically care about the suffering of not only ourselves, not only those close to us, but of all living creatures. That's all I have to say.